Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Are we live?
Yes, I can.
Hey, everyone drop your fire emojis in chat. We got Wildfire Swap coming up.
I just realized that I'm looking at the wrong screen. That's why I didn't know what the heck was going on. Everything's fine. Hello! I was looking at a screenshot of our schedule, being like, guess I'm just going to sit here for longer and wait until things are ready. All right, I am your distracted host, Catherine Toll. This is Andrew Goodenough, and we are going to be joined here by the devs of Wildfire Swap. We've got Ryan here talking to us, and we've got Drew here talking to us about Wildfire Swap, which is an adorable game about burning your house. I mean, not burning your house down. Ryan, how would you describe the game to someone?
Yeah, it's a little tricky sometimes, but I think the short kind of pitch we ended up with was it's a puzzle. Wildfire Swap's a puzzle game about swapping tiles and fighting fires is kind of the catchy one. But yeah, it's kind of like we take sort of that tile swapping mechanic from like Bejeweled or like Match 3 style games and kind of use it to allow you to kind of play with like a systemic fire spread puzzle. Kind of. I think that's kind of the gist. And like you said, the goal is to not burn the house.
Like I just didn't do.
Don't burn your house down,
It's
Catherine.
fine. Don't burn the house down.
I don't know.
I played these levels last night at like 2:00 in the morning, and I was doing really great. And now that I'm
You're getting
completely, I've slept and I'm feeling great. Now I can't play the game. So I don't know what that says about me. Go away.
Hey!
There we go. Figured it out.
There it is.
Bam.
So, are you guys the devs? Are you two the sole devs, or are there other people on the team as well? What's the team comp looking like?
We did most of the work, and a friend of ours, Wes Mueller, did music, and of course, many playtesters.
And the
And
sound
amongst
effects as
you,
well.
Yeah.
of course, yeah, the rest of the audio design. What hats did each of you guys wear?
Yeah,
I did
oh yeah, go ahead.
I did most of the levels, and a little bit of the coding, and Ryan did most of the coding and some of the levels, and we both did art too.
Although Drew did a lot of the good aesthetic direction that kind of transformed the game. We were actually at 6 2019, so if you saw the game there, it looked a lot more basic, I guess. Drew had a big hand in kind of like changing.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's like the aesthetic for the different worlds changes now, and then there's sort of like a progression of like kind of the levels getting smokier, and there's a lot more atmosphere to it now that Drew really nailed with the art upgrade. So
Thank you.
And Drew's also the musician, if I'm tracking the names right.
Wes.
Musician and sound design. Wes. So Wes, and then Drew. Okay, so Drew here in the call. That Drew down there. I'm also Drew. I'm Andrew. We have. It's not that you guys were sharing a lot of hats. You guys were both programming, both doing level design. Some did more level design than others. Some did more programming than others. What was the level design process like for producing so many of these like turn-based levels?
Sure. Yeah, that's a big topic. I think level design, the core of it is kind of just getting really good at the game I'm making levels for. This is, mind you, the first game I've made a lot of levels for. So, so a lot of it was just having curiosity, trying to discover, what the mechanics could do. So I actually came onto the project after these mechanics were already in the game. Ryan and I were already friends, and I had seen him working on this and sharing it at Pig Squad events with the Portland Indie Game Squad, which is like a local game community.
Pig.
Shout out to Pig Squad.
Yeah, and we just talked about it, and I was like, I would love to try making levels, and then so it began. But yeah, so a lot of just messing around, asking myself like what if questions. Like, what if the player ends the level on the same tile they start the level on, or something like that? Like, can I make it happen? And so what came out of the mechanics were these patterns that were interesting, and that's really what the game is built around. each world kind of has its own focus. So World 2 is really about the grass spreads the fire quickly, and different patterns that arise from that. Sorry, that was a lot of, but
no, don't worry. I asked a very open question, so an open answer is only welcome. In the process of developing these levels, what sort of like tools did you have at your disposal?
Yeah. Ryan can talk about it.
Yeah, cool. So I think that the main tool we kind of had is a custom level editor, which sounds fancy, but is really just not fancy. Unfeatured, low featured. But the reason that we had it that way is because the original intention was to ship the level editor with the version of the game. So we chose to actually make it run in the engine, and so it's kind of it looks a lot like what you see here. And there's just like a bunch of very poorly styled like web buttons that you can click to like place tiles on the screen. And so that's kind of where a lot of it came from. Drew, I think another big tool that was used was Google Sheets. So Drew has this, like he's talked about those patterns before. So we actually have like, I want to say like, I don't know, some 400 plus levels that got built in some variation. And only like a quarter of those are actually in the game. But there's like this big sheet of like, oh, this level feels like a more aggressive solution, and it explores the loop mechanic of tall grass. So like there's a bunch of these kind of characteristics. And then we kind of, like Drew's saying, we'd be like, oh, these things kind of explore this loop mechanic, and then this one seems like a good intro, and then this is a good exploration, and this is a good challenge. So we kind of have all these sequences mapped all over the place. And honestly, Google Sheets is probably one of our big tools on organizing all of this mess.
We're not sponsored by Google Sheets yet. Contact us.
I'm curious about the level design and the difficulty that kind of ramps up with this game. How do you decide, okay, this is world 1, this is how, easy we want things to get? Like, how does that difficulty scale in this game?
Playtesting helped that a lot, because we can see where people got stuck or where people like blew through it really fast. So that was definitely a big one. Of course, we tried our best before the playtesting to do that as well. And I think to start with, the mechanics are ordered from simplest to most complicated. And then in general, the levels just get bigger over the course of the worlds. So they might still have the levels might still have the same set of purposes. Like, I took a pretty simple approach to like, let's have one level to introduce something, one level to like let the player explore that, and one level to challenge them. So just it's kind of sorry about that. It's kind of just that over and over, introducing different patterns and mechanics, but it'll be more moves over the course of the game, maybe more red herrings or like extra things to think about, but a lot of iteration.
Did you guys ever? You go, Ryan.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to mention that the way the mechanics ended up shaping up is that they're kind of additive and adds more. So like you start out with just trees, but then we add grass, and then we don't remove trees. You have both, and then we add wind is the kind of the last mechanic you'll get to. But all these things kind of have this combinatorial effect, where just because they're there, it's just getting more complicated as well. By nature of the way we did that.
You have, there were the only 3 like core pieces to all these levels. Grass,
the mechanics, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
So I know you have like 100 plus, 120 plus levels. Like, that is an amazing amount of design space from such a limited, constrained design.
It surprised us too.
Yeah, one thing we did try to do, and Drew kind of helped cement some of this too, was we do have those 3 base mechanics, but we designed interesting ways that those interact. So like, for instance, this World 2, like Drew mentioned, is all about tall grass burns quickly. and threatens you. But one thing that you'll notice about the grass is that it kind of turns into an ash pile at a certain point. And so the next world will kind of explore how that, while it is threatening that the grass moves fast, it also kind of turns into a new barrier. So we have 3 mechanics, but they kind of interact in ways that produce new interactions.
Overloaded uses, different state changes and the like. That's awesome. Were there anything are there examples of mechanics that were cut from? Did you guys try to build like levels design and you're like, nope.
Yeah.
Huzzah! Good job, Catherine. Good job.
I pride myself in being like a puzzle player, and I play them every weekend, and I was getting really stuck and embarrassed. So ignore me.
It's really hard on stream. It's just hard knowing people are watching you.
Yeah.
Just yanks my headphones out. That's cool. Good though.
Another question I'd ask about cut content would be: surely there were levels you guys made that just didn't work?
Yeah. You can take that one, Drew, if you want.
Sure. As we were saying before, each level has a purpose. Like that helped a lot. That could have actually been included in my first answer, I guess. But so if I'm looking at comparing 2 levels, they're both trying to occupy the same kind of slot. Like it is introducing grass or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And as a level designer, I'm really trying to help the player get through this. So in that case, I'd be like, okay, which one introduces grass better? Like, which one do I think has more clarity, like a better user experience? And so a lot of the cut levels aren't bad. They just weren't as good and they were redundant.
Right. I remember you guys talking about this on stream previously as well.
Yeah, I think we figured that out a lot during playtesting too, because so like Drew mentioned, I started on this project first, like prototyping it, and I had a lot of the levels that I made were sort of that redundant thing. And then as people played it, you kind of like get this realization that like, oh, they're just doing the same thing, but it's like the shape is a little different. And so that was another cool thing that Drew came up with partway through. It's like, oh yeah, like this is neat, but it also it's just the same.
We were touching on difficulty earlier. Were there levels that were cut out of like just like, hey, this is far too hard?
Yeah. there was I think early on, honestly, iteration is a huge factor in this. I don't think we've literally said those words yet. We've hinted at it a lot with playtesting and stuff, but like some of the early hard levels were just big levels, right? And those are hard. Like they're very hard just because it's hard to think through all the possibility space that's there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're interesting. Like they're not accomplishing anything other than just being really hard, which isn't exactly like our goal. So there was like a couple levels that were just like, we basically just filled the whole thing. Because at some point you're like, yeah, we got to go big, right? And those I think never ended up back in anywhere because they didn't really accomplish what we were looking for.
Right.
I think that was did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Now, before I can't let this interview pass without talking about your bonkers tech stack. Because I also make web games and wrap them in Electron. You make web games and wrap them in Electron. I found a kindred spirit. How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, I've been doing that for so the Electron part is new, but I've been doing web games for my entire games career. I'm a web developer by day, and I really like games, and so. But I was like, I need to practice being a web developer too. So I ended up just kind of making a lot of JavaScript games, like a lot of prototypes and like game jams and stuff I would do in JavaScript so I could like kind of practice for my day job in air quotes, but make video games. And then for Wildfire Swap, this is sort of our first like actual commercial release. It's like, okay, well, people don't really want to pay for something that they found on miniclip.com or whatever. So instead I make you download the browser and now it is magically a real game. Also, the other secret is that we spent like 2 years making it. So,
And Drew, you also sling some JavaScript as well?
Yeah, I've been doing that more professionally recently.
Nice.
But Ryan definitely did most of the code on this one. I'm sort of a newcomer to the space, relatively.
You're making a turn-based game, a turn-based style-based game. I'm sure it'd be a great fit for mobile. Have you guys considered using a similar wrapper but for mobile?
Yeah, that's a big thing we've been thinking about. I mean, honestly, another thing we've been thinking about too is just like what a web playable like demo version of the game would look like. So just in general, the fact that we have this browser, it kind of makes sense to adapt the game and ship it elsewhere. Pretty much the only reason it's not on mobile already is that it's not trivial to just do that. And like the mobile ecosystem is something I don't fully understand personally.
It's a wholly different beast, right?
Yeah, it's basically just like every time something seems like it's like, oh, Apple Arcade might be the answer, and then now that's all doing whatever the heck's going on there. So mobile is just a whole nother thing to learn, business wise. But I'm super interested in that idea, and I do think it's pretty reasonable to get there.
You did it!
Woo!
Nice job.
Ryan, you guys are building this game in web tech. I like with the game of web tech. Do you guys render it in? Are these HTML buttons in the top right and top left, or are these canvas elements?
That is all. So we use a library called Phaser.js to do like the tiles and like the game mechanic parts, and then we use React to do all of the UI interfaces. So yeah, the UI is HTML and the game simulation is canvas.
Also, both, a hybrid of each. The best of both worlds. There are a lot of game engines that will bring in HTML and CSS to do UI. So for your UI, you just already have HTML and CSS there.
Yeah, we get the best of both worlds and the worst of both worlds.
There's dozens of us. You have this game you guys built for 2 years. You're shipping it on Steam. It's shipped on Steam, right? You can get it on Steam now.
Yeah, we shipped in March, I think. I believe it was March.
Yeah.
Huzzah! While developing it, did you guys ever, I don't know, doubt your tech stack?
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd choice, right? Like there's not a lot of support for it. I think the first time I bundled Electron, distributed it to a platform was the first time I was like, oh, this is just the worst. It's just shipping a web app is, I mean, I guess I know how to ship web apps, but you upload it to a server and then it's just on every platform and you don't have to think about it anymore. And then now I'm like running a Docker environment to compile to Windows from my Mac, and it's just like a whole thing.
That sounds
I don't know if that's
like a thing.
Yeah, it's just a big thing. I don't know if that's actually any easier on other platforms, but that distribution angle is certainly where doubt comes in. And then there's also the fact where it's just like, this is never going to run on a console in this code base. Like,
right, you just conceded that.
Yeah. So like that's another limitation that I don't love having made that, but it let the game ship. So
hey, you did it. So
shipping is important.
Yeah.
Across development, was there any example of something that was like a really easy add, be it a feature or fix, some UI or some juice that added a lot of value to you? It just made it work. And you're like, I get it. Like, I convey to the user better, or it feels better.
Do you have any thoughts on that one, Drew? I don't know. I feel like I've been talking a lot. I can go if you don't, but it's okay.
Yeah, if you have ideas, go for it.
I think one of the small things that I think adds a lot is like one of the polished sort of details on like the tile hovering and like the swapping and like that stuff where it's like I don't know where, but there was some talk I heard some time ago that just was like, never let anything just appear. Everything it needs to scale in, or it needs to slide in, or it needs to whatever. And that little piece of advice of just, cause like, it's really not that much work to just say like on swap, scale up by 10% and then scale back to normal. And so it really adds a lot to just kind of have all of those little details that really kind of makes it feel a lot better to to swap tiles since you do that a lot.
There's
It
a
is
shout
very
out to some of the
cutesy.
sound effects.
Oh,
what's
yeah.
up?
Yeah, which unfortunately you're all
Yeah.
not hearing. I'm sorry, but I'm hearing how cute they are.
Yeah, that's why I want to point them out. Is like when you swap tiles, there's like a little dunk, or if you click on stuff, it goes like a leaves moving or something.
They definitely feel
So-
like real game board pieces almost. Like I'm
Mhm.
physically moving
Cool.
little
Great.
tiles around because they have that nice little thunk.
Yeah.
And you can see them as being 3D objects and you can kind of watch them move around. I think that it's got
Yeah.
a very cute and encouraging kind of feel to it because obviously I'm just trying the same thing over and over again right now and feeling insane because it's
Yeah.
not working. But I
Yeah,
love
that-
it and I want to keep playing it.
Yeah, that was part of one of our like philosophy design pillar sort of details was just like this. The game is hard, so any way we can make it encouraging and happy and welcoming was like very much our intention.
Yeah.
We have a question
I
from
need
a Mr.
This grass to burn out. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
We have a question from Cole Timmings. He asks, the game was in 6 twice. How did that impact development, and how much did it change from previous 6 to now?
Oh boy. So I think, I mean, one of the great things about we were in 6 2019. That was pretty much our first like large
Before
event
times.
showing. Sorry.
In the before times.
Oh yeah, the before times. Yeah, that's what makes it so hard to compare. Like, very very weird time to finish and ship a game. But yeah, in 6 2019, that was our first like big event, and there were people everywhere. And when we launched, we actually got a lot of email signups and stuff like that at previous 6, and like there was like someone from RPS, like from Rock Paper Shotgun, covered the game and like specifically mentioned that they saw it in their mailing list. So it's like there's some like direct links that I have and like other marketing things from like, oh, I met this person at the 6 event. So like that kind of stuff is like very easy to trace to like, yeah, that event impacted our reach, I guess. While I handled the marketing, I don't really know that much about marketing, so the words that I use are probably made up. But so like that was a big thing for us. And then yeah, being in 2019 this year post ship, or this year's 2021, isn't it? Was also pretty cool. We saw some like noticeable spikes in our stuff because we launched earlier in the year, so it's kind of clear like when spikes happen now. I think at the beginning of launching a game on Steam, it's pretty ambiguous, like what is doing anything at all, because it's just up, you know, and I have no other data to compare. But yeah, we saw a lot of wish list and sale spike stuff this year too, so that was pretty cool. I think that was the question.
I think so. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cole Timmings. I hope that answered your question. Totally not involved with 6 in any way.
Not a planted question whatsoever.
Not at all.
It's great.
I will
Have
add
you made
too.
other kinds
It was one of
games?
our.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was one of our first big playtest events in
Wow,
a way
6
too, even
was,
though it was
yeah.
just on a demo. So just seeing a lot of people play it definitely started informing. Yeah.
I'm curious if you've made
kind
other
of-
puzzle games before.
If we
Not myself.
made or played,
Made any
sorry.
other puzzle games? Made?
Not this is definitely the biggest thing puzzle wise that I've shipped. I've done a lot of game jams, and a lot of them tend to be, I'm pretty interested in like systemic sort of games, and I think while they're not necessarily puzzle games, there's a lot of relatedness with like, because like Drew kind of mentioned at one point, like I designed like this system, and then a lot of the work of actually making the puzzles was stuff Drew did of like exploring the system and kind of discovering little paths in that system. So
Yeah.
So yes and no, I guess.
Sorry,
I'm
Andrew, go ahead.
terrified to
Thank you.
ask this question, and you don't have to have an answer for it yet. But you ship in March.
Oh boy.
What's next for you guys?
Oh boy. Yeah, I have no idea. We do have a little bit more content. So speaking about stuff we cut, like the level editor, and there's a couple other modes that we were interested in. Like there's that stuff that that we just had to cut. We cut like maybe 50% of the scope of the game, like twice during the 2 years we built it. Nice progress.
On the way there, Catherine. So.
And so we've been starting to talk about maybe getting back to doing some of that stuff. I think that would be fun. We're just sort of, I think recovering from post-launch burnout is exacerbated at the end of it.
Pun intended?
Yeah.
Because while it was a 2-year project, I think probably like 50% of it was in the last 2 or 3 months. So.
Right.
Yeah. Chronologically over 2 years, but we definitely worked in like several like big bursts of stuff, and then like some nice healthy periods of oh god, we're really burned out.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm just watching Catherine burn down houses.
Yeah.
I know. I am just the worst. I'm just burning over and over and over again. I'm probably giving them heart attacks watching me play their game terribly. I apologize.
No, you're doing great.
Oh no, it's
that's part of it, you know. You got to burn down the houses to learn how to not do it.
Yeah, you can't make an omelet without burning down some houses.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, before we wrap up in here in a few minutes, is there anything you'd like people to know about working in Electron, or maybe the do's and don'ts? Like, do you want to tell people definitely not do this, or definitely do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest lesson that I feel like I got out of this bizarre tech stack is more, rather than necessarily use Electron, more just like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure for everyone to drop everything they're doing and go learn Unity, and you can't make a game until you've done that and your whole team's on board or whatever. And I think what I kind of learned is just like, do what you know how to do. Like if you want to ship a game, then work on shipping the game with the tools you know, because I think over this process, I don't really have a good analogy for it, but like I feel like doing game jams, I thought like this was making a game, and then working on this project, I'm like, oh, actually there's polish, and then there's content, and then there's distribution, and like this little part matters about tech choice, and then everything else was just like, oh boy, we have so much to learn. So yeah, it's really just use what you know if you want to make a game. Electron was fine. It has limitations.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Everything has limitations. Everything's going to be hard. Everything's hard. Yeah. Making games are hard. There's no golden bullet to this.
Yeah. 100%.
Congrats on shipping a game.
Thank you.
Yay! And it's such a great game. It's so cute. I love it. And as someone who plays puzzle games all the time and generally gets a little bit bored at difficulty levels, like I'm really enjoying that this is challenging for me. And I look forward to playing more of it. So thank you for making something hard for me.
Great. Yeah, thanks for playing.
Well, thank you both for your time so much and joining us again here for our 6th bonus round and hearing all about the development cycle of this game, this adorable game. Sorry again, you can't hear it, but everybody go and get the game and play for yourself. And we'll be back in 5 minutes with the last segment of our show, Maze of the Minotaur. But thank you, Ryan and Drew. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. We have a great segment coming up. See you in a few.
Bye, all.